Evening, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar on a very important and a topic that touches us on a daily basis. I would like to start with a brief introduction to FACEMI, followed by an introduction to our resource person today, Dr. Shanta Kamath, and then go on to our moderator for the day, Dr. Aparna Gonibeed. So first, an introduction to FACEMI. Families Alliance on Mental Illness India, or FACEMI, is the first and probably the only family advocacy group in the country as of date. FACEMI advocates for quality care of persons with mental illness by their family members. Expert guidance and latest rules and regulations are imparted to family members actively through our monthly webinars and the vibrant WhatsApp groups. We are deeply rooted in the family ethos through an inclusive approach whereby we do not call family members as caregivers and their loved ones as PMIs. Inclusive family is a salient feature of our group. We work with both the central and state governments to advocate for the rights and wellness of the PMIs as promised under the laws of the land. We have very active and vibrant WhatsApp group. We are known as Shanti Delhi in North India, Maitri Bangalore in South, and FAVMI in Bombay, in Mumbai, and Shakti, Kolkata. The details of these four groups are on the screen as displayed by Saraswati. Kindly make note, they will also be shared at the end of the webinar. If you wish to join, kindly join us. I would now go on to introduce our resource person for the day, Dr. Shanta Kamath. Dr. Shanta Kamath is the consultant psychiatrist and member of the board of management at SCARF Schizophrenia Research Foundation in Chennai. She has over 36 years of experience in dealing with the chronic mentally ill. She is in charge of the Residential Center for Women at Chennai. Her interests are in women with illness and rehabilitation. She has worked on a large project for the National Convention for Women. She has research papers and awards for community service to her credit. Dr. Shanta volunteers her time at the old age home and the home for the mentally ill women. Thank you for being here with us, Dr. Shanta Kamath. Looking forward to your inputs this evening. I would now like to introduce our moderator for the day, Dr. Aparna Gonibeed. Dr. Aparna Gonibeed is a senior lecturer in Manchester Metropolitan University, UK. She is a trained counsellor from Madras School of Social Work, Chennai. Her mother, Vani Sukumar, trained her to work with people with mental illness. Together, mother and daughter worked to empower people with mental illness by training them in activities of daily living, educating employers on recruiting people with mental illness, and supporting people with mental illness to stay in employment. Aparna worked under her mother's leadership towards this objective for some years before moving to the UK for her PhD. Thank you, Dr. Aparna Gonibeed, for being here with us today. I now hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. Very excited to be part of this session. Most importantly, I think to try and brainstorm. Many of us are probably at a wit's end in terms of trying to figure out what are next steps, how do we break through, how do we get ahead in terms of medication compliance. I'm very excited to hear everybody's ideas, helping each other. So I because of the structure of today's session, I know that we really want to get as many voices in as possible. It would be really amazing if we can get voices from parents, from PMIs, if you want to share, siblings, or any other caring responsibilities that might be out there. I think we need to start off by acknowledging that none of us are victims of life, or we are not victims of circumstances. We're all very empowered individuals and in a safe place to sort of help each other. So in case there's some starting trouble, I can start with a little bit about my circumstances in this situation, and maybe that'll give you some idea in terms of how to sort of share your experiences. So it's my brother who was diagnosed with schizophrenia in 2013. So he was he was about 30 at the time of diagnosis. We've had this journey now about 14 years. It's been quite crazy and long journey already. Crazy in the sense of roller coaster rides that I'm sure all of you will attest to. And we've been fairly lucky in terms of medical compliance, in the sense that he did take medication for a long time, all by himself. And he used to visit the psychiatrist himself and everything. However, about 8 months ago or 7 months ago, he decided to stop taking medication unbeknownst to any of us in the family. And we were going through a lot of health crisis in the family as well. So we didn't pay too much attention to what was going on. But that sort of escalated. So it got to a point where he wasn't taking it. And then we had to force admission into a facility. And now he's discharged from the facility and he's taking medication. And that is an extreme step. I acknowledge that. But that was a required step. And it was very difficult. But I think you might all agree with me that family support, everybody in the family coming together to make these decisions as informed as you possibly can is very, very important, so that everybody is comfortable with the decision that's being made. And I think compliance is one of those things that's a very tricky situation, because it can cause a sense of guilt. Am I doing the right thing? Is the right thing for the person, etc. So I'll sort of stop there and invite anybody else who would like to share. This is about moderating. I'm not giving a lecture or anything, but I would really welcome tips and suggestions for everybody else who are on similar journeys, who have faced similar challenges to ourselves, so that we can try and not to be only focusing on positive, but to try and help each other as much as possible. So I'll invite some voices. If you don't mind raising your hand, or if you want to take the mic, that's fine too. Yes, Nasser. Thank you.
Yes, hi. My name is Nasser. I have my elder sister. She's 1 year elder to me, and she's been diagnosed with paranoid psychosis. And she was admitted in Nimans in Bangalore for a period of 1 month. Then, due to the rules and regulations, they had to discharge her, and we had to get her home. She was pretty good for another 6 months because she was taking medicines. But then after 6 months, after discharge, for a period of 1 year, she was all right. She was normal. After 1 year, the trouble started when she stopped taking medicines. And now it's almost 2-3 years when she's not taking medicines. And life is not at all smooth for my mother and me. My mother lives with my sister. I am a secondary caregiver. I just live 1 block away. We all are affected very negatively because of this, and we are struggling every day on how to handle my sister. And yeah, it's a big struggle. Thanks.
Thanks, Nasser. Can I just come back to you very quickly, Nasser? Like, in the past year or so, have you tried some initiatives that, or you've just not tried?
My sister is a very strong personality type, dominant, bullying personality type. So she has created an environment of terror in the house in front of my mother, and we cannot even attempt to touch her with any medicine, any tablet, any syrup, any name of a doctor in front of her, or any name of a hospital in front of her. If we do, then she resorts to violence, verbal and physical. So we have left it at that. And my mother is bearing the torture. Yeah.
Would you consider forced? Do you live in Bangalore? Sorry.
Yeah, I live in Bangalore. So we had done forced admission to her 3 years back in Imans, and now because she stopped taking medicines again, she has come to a bad situation. It's getting worse every hour of the day now, and my mother refuses to give any forced admission to her because my mother is afraid of my sister's backlash, violence, both verbal and physical. So my mother has given an ultimatum to me to not to dare try giving forced admission to my sister till my mother is alive. So a lot of emotional talks and emotional threats by my mother. Basically, my mom is afraid of my sister. And as I said, my sister is a very dominating personality type, you know. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anybody who has any ideas for Nasser, or would you like to share some similar story? Yes, Saraswati. Sorry.
Yeah. So, in my case, I'm a mother to my elder one, who's been diagnosed with schizophrenia. We've been in this journey for about 10 years. And it's only in the first 6 years, it was a very difficult journey. Completely, the diagnosis itself was not correct. And, we were struggling a lot. In the last 4 years, things have, we've got the right diagnosis and the medicines. But still, there is a denial at his level. And so initially, what we started was giving him injectables. That is what we started. And very low dosage of medications the doctor used to give. So this was like creating a habit for him. So, and just one time in a day, so that the habit got formed of actually having a medicine. So even if he missed that, it was a very small dosage and the injectables was taking part of it. That is how we started the process of creating a habit in his head of having medication, because somewhere routine works for such people. And the second thing what we did was, which worked as a process, which we tried was, we made it like an activity. So every day in the night, I would get my medicines out. So my diabetes and, cholesterol medicines and his medicines, so we sat together and he would have his medication. I would have my medication. So it was like an activity which we did together. Till today, we do that. So, it's like a joint effort. I'm suffering from something, so I'm having. You are suffering from something, so you are having. And slowly, somewhere in the last 2 years, I can say, injectables have stopped and we have now moved on to actually giving him, he's taking his medication. So that's what we have done in the past.
I see. I thank you for sharing. I think we all know that this is a very unique journey for every family, for every circumstance. And I think just going back to what Nasser has said, there is a lot of that emotional blackmail that's a part of it. Unfortunately, it's unintentional. Well, if they knew that they were causing so much trouble for their loved ones, it probably wouldn't be so difficult. But I think what you're saying, Saraswati, is trying different ways of giving medication. So trying options like injectables, giving low dosages, making it a family activity, which probably works in some situations. But thank you for sharing so much. I think I saw Richa's hand go up. And then is this Emmanuel whose hand is up?
Hello.
Yes,
Yeah, good
speaking.
morning.
Yeah.
Can I speak?
Yes, Richa.
Yeah, well, I connected with Nasir because whatever he's been through, I think even we had this. Since I was, his first case was my mom. And I think the way we dealt with her was finding somebody she trusts, in medicines. So that is more, it became a little easier. So she trusted me since I was the eldest child and she was very close to me. And that time I was, I think, 10 or 11. So I think she trusted me also. So the way we did was I used to give her medicines and she used to take it from me. That was one thing. Sometimes when she was very aggressive, that time medicines were given to her in her food. I gave her in juices or milk or whatever she liked to eat, that I would administer. That's how we gave her medicines. And I think basically what I saw with my sibling as well, my sister's again suffering, somebody she trusts and not somebody she triggers. So I triggered her because being the eldest, I'm always like, I used to guide her and things. She doesn't like being guided. She wants to be on her own. So somebody who listens to her. So my brother listens to her, so she's comfortable taking medicine from him. She listens more to him than me. So I think identifying who is triggering and keeping that person away, and person who's helping should take the lead and take the charge. That is also one thing. Building trust is very important in I think extreme cases. It's very difficult to build a trust. Communicate with these people is very difficult. So engaging less and not like talking about too much of medication and stuff like that in front of her. We didn't even keep medicines in front of her. That was another way of dealing with it. So I think first and foremost is finding somebody who can, they trust, who they can trust. Because taking to a doctor, and again, I think medication generally, not only just for mental patients in India, I mean, all of us, even for headaches, I know people who don't like taking medicines. So medication in general, people get triggered just by the name itself. That's another big stigma. People avoid taking medication. That is also another thing. So I think building trust is first and foremost thing, and keeping the trigger away. I think the psychiatrist should identify that there is a trigger this person is getting triggered by, and the triggered person should be kept away. That's what I feel.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I relate to that example because in our situation, my brother trusts my mother. Like there is innate trust, but in that situation, my mother will not do anything to break that trust. So I relate with Nas's situation as well. I think there is a very odd attachment when there is such innate trust and there is a fear of breaking that trust, and what happens if they find out, when they find out. So in our situation, I sort of took that lead, and I took the lead in terms of, okay, I'll play the bad person, I'll do it. I made some decisions, some executive decisions as the sibling, but my parents supported in that decision, and then they came along with the ride. So maybe that's something for Nasir to think about, because it's quite difficult when the carer is living with, and they are saying, there's an emotional blackmail component that can be very difficult to break. But thank you so much for sharing, Richa. I think it's quite rich coming from lived experiences of having fairly extreme cases within the family, and not just one but two.
I've seen
cases.
another case I've seen is where the parent refuses to acknowledge that the child is a problem. It's a huge one. I mean, it's very difficult to tell the parents, the mother is refusing to accept that my son has a problem. Even Nirmala ji knows about this case, and the entire family is in trouble.
Yeah.
That's also a challenge to explain to the parent that the child needs it.
Yeah, but that's going into a different context of denial. I agree with your point also about, normal people don't take medicine for a headache or migraine. So it's very normal problem,
Yeah,
so to say.
No, sorry. I want to say something. Can I say something?
Yeah, sure, Nasir.
So my mom is in denial also that my sister is a mental patient. Okay, because of what my sister keeps saying, that she's not, because my sister is in total denial that she's got any mental illness or any mental challenge. So my mother also has got to believe that no, she doesn't have any mental illness. So you're not going to force admission or anything of that sort. So yeah, so there's a denial on both patient as well as the caregiver.
Thank you. There are two hands raised, and I'm conscious of time. So I think is it Emmanuel, and then there's
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I have some four different situations. I'll focus on only one because that relates to what Nasir said. Nimhans, yes, in this case, my brother-in-law, he had this same schizophrenia. He was taking medication, and in between, the one spiritual person told him, "You are healed. You don't need medication." So he stopped. Then it became quite worse, and all that hallucination, etc. Later on, we tried to get him to get admitted to Nimans. But they wanted the police this one there, and so we went to the court, and all the, I mean, the rest of the family was thrown out of the house because he was violent. So there's a big story, but I'll make it short. And then we had to go pursue through the court, but finally he came to the court and judge dismissed the case. So again, it was back to square one, but he had sobered down after that. But later on, but medication he was not taking. So after that, we had to go to a private. I think I should not take the name of the clinic, etc. Here, I can take it one-to-one. So we got them to come and pick him up and admit him. Then after about 1 year inside and about 1 year living by himself separately, then he sobered down, came to a stage where he takes now injections monthly, and he's sort of under control, not able to work. But there no, at least the rest of the family is safe. This is in short. The other two cases, we had to give medicine without their knowledge for about a few years. And then they came to the stage where they could take medication on their own. It is in short.
Yeah. Thank you. I think might be helpful for Nasir if you can share that privately rather than publicly. But that's quite useful, I think.
Sure.
And Nirmala, ma'am.
Yeah, hi, Aparna. This is just no narrative of any personal thought here. One is just want to share a piece of information for those who are residing in Bangalore. Nimans has this assisted home care facility. Of late, they have not given much publicity because of various reasons, but still the steam is there. Now, they are evaluating the program itself at the national level. Government of India is interested in this program, and it has been, I was told, it has been discussed at a very high level of to launch assisted home care across India. Now we should dispassionately examine, instead of leaving the loved ones to their own whims and fancies, if I can take the liberty of using that word within quotes, to their own choices rather, should we try with certain other things like calling these people over? Because this team which comes is not a medical team. It's basically social workers. And then they take it forward. That is one thing. Nasir has probably tried. I don't think he has tried this. But then I'm not assuring anything, because it's even a very sensitive thing to get some outsiders suddenly come in. That's very tough for us. So that is one observation. If people want to do it, residents of Bangalore, it can be done. That's not an issue. But then I really think the most enduring thing is what Saraswati says. Creating a habit in the family, internalizing the habits, I think in my view, I believe it's going to help a lot. But apart from all that, at the systems level, something has to be done upon. This is not to be left to the families to do. What can we do at the systems level? Because all psychiatrists are trying everything. This is where systems level solutions, maybe we have to take it forward in the next series of this topic. What can we make the government do it at a systems level to help us? I leave you with these questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I also relate to what you had said about earlier about the suggestion for Nasir in terms of the private thing. And I just want to make one point on that front. When we go forward with these kind of forced admissions, it is quite a traumatic experience. However much the family is on board or not on board, it is quite traumatic. It's very, the family members who are at home are guilty, all that. However, after some time, there was a little bit of relief to know they're taking medication. We are having some normalcy in our lives where we're able to go about our daily lives. So, I would just sort of nudge Nasser to have a chat with Emmanuel and maybe talk to you about these initiatives that are there locally, because locally it matters more than going, across the border. That matters a lot. Yeah, and I think state level interventions, nation level interventions are very, very important. In the UK, at least, there is a lot more sort of acceptance, or a lot more, I think, normalizing people with mental illness, and so it's not seen in the way that we see it in India. There is a lot more acceptance of these situations, the caring responsibility. So in the workplace, carers have extra perks and supporting mechanisms. And I think those are the kind of initiatives that are worth pushing through, or maybe thinking about, okay, if we can't do something for PMIs, what can we do for the carers? What kind of benefits can we provide for the carers? What kind of support mechanisms that carers might benefit from, whether it's financial packages or some kind of, discount, if you like, or something that would help them get a reprieve. Something to think about. I just also noticed the time. Is it time to hand over back to you, Sindhuja and Saraswati?
No, Aparna, we have time till 7:30.
Till 7:30. Okay. Okay, that's great. Is there anybody else who wants to pitch in on what we've shared so far in terms of ideas and tips and suggestions that you would like to go for?
Can I speak, doctor?
Who's this? Sorry, is it Badra?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I want to ask one thing, the residual schizophrenia phase, can we do pranayam, Brahmari like, for 10 minutes, 5 minutes? Breathing exercise. Pranayam means breathing exercise.
I mean, yeah, those are good for everybody. So I don't know if you're asking me for a medical opinion, which obviously I can't really give. But I think our resource person might be able to highlight about that. We can pick that up later, if that's okay.
Yeah, okay.
Sure. I think Ram Prakash, you raised your hand.
May I talk, ma'am?
Rupa, yeah, sure. I think Ram Prakash raised hand first. Is it you? Ram Prakash is the same.
Shall I wait? Shall I wait?
No, sure, go for it, Rupa. And then we'll come to Ram Prakash and then Gautam.
Namaste. My name is Rupa. I'm 51-year-old. I'm a PMI cum caregiver for my brother. I'm having paranoid schizophrenia. It's below 20% now. So I have been taking medication since 2007. On and off, because of the joint family issues, my mother-in-law had decided to send me permanently back to my parents' house because of the financial issues related to the illness. But I went there and I could not live without my son. He was very young and I was over attached to him. I used to demand my mother that I had to go back. I can't live without him. So they were not sending the child over there. So that was the case. And finally, after doctor said I was taking treatment in Abhaya Hospital, Dr. Jagdish, I was admitted there for 1 week. I was taking medicines as well as counseling. So I got better, and they said up to 6 months you had to take the medicine, then you will get better. In between, someone on and off tablet. I was living the tablets, so was the condition on and off. I could not continue for 6 months since I was moving away from my mother's house to in-laws' house and in-laws' house to mother's house. Because of the change of the place, I could not continue the medicines. And afterwards, my mother's house was in near Airport Road, Hebal. So I was not able to go to Abhaya Hospital. It was closer to Nimans. So we were not in a position to afford so much of money for the autos and all. Then we decided to take medicine in Rajachinagar Spandana Hospital. There I took better counseling, and then ECT, CBT, or even on and off, there was violence in the family. And my father-in-law used to say that I have been taking drugs because of that. She's behaving like this very rudely and all. Then I tolerated everything, and later they suggested me not to take the medicines. They wanted me to stop the medicines. Then I said, I informed it to the doctor. They said that they gave me one calendar to mark whether I have been taking the tablets regularly or not. Because of the work stress in the joint family, I was not remembering whether I have taken the medicines or not. Then he gave me one calendar to mark whether I have taken that particular day. I progressed from that day. Dr. Srinivas of Spandana had given me that idea. That helped me a lot. And later, because of ECT and CBT, that could help Nazar's case as well. When his mother goes to take bath, we can send some social worker as his nurse or something and give some injection and take her to the hospital. And apart from the medicine, ECT and CBT also helps a lot in our cases, apart from counseling and all. It is genetic in our family. Both the parents had a history. Out of 7 members, 3 to 4 are affected. So I lost one more brother. He had suicidal attempts twice. We could not survive him a second time. So he was the main earning member for the family.
We would take it, even though I'm sure that he knows what he's taking. It's not just vitamins. We can't fool around in a biomedical engineering guy. It's a smart kid also. But anyway, somehow he was taking. But he never got insight. Even now, he hasn't got the insight. But there is one trick we tried. It is kind of helping a little bit better. I started telling that I have schizophrenia. It's a drama I created, to be honest, within the family. Kind of, I'm hearing voices. I'm hearing kind of dreams and whatnot, everything. Then I said that I'm going to Dr. Shanta Kamath, then I'm going to counseling. Then he met with a doctor. Before that, he never had an opportunity to see a doctor. All the medicines were given based on what I was giving suggestions. They were giving medicines. But at least now, the psychiatrist and psychologist is able to see the patient himself. And even counseling, he started going once in 2 weeks. In fact, myself also will go. I will go through first half an hour session, and he will go through next session. Slowly he's connecting. He's still, there is an issue of medicine intake. Now, actually, unfortunately, he has gone back to US now, officially. We couldn't hold him up. It's a big chance we are taking. He has gone back to San Francisco. It's just 3 weeks now in San Francisco. First 10 days, he didn't take medicine. Then my wife traveled there to San Francisco, tried to push him out, taking medicines and all of that. So he's claiming that he's taking medicine, but I don't know whether he's taking medicine. The problem is he hasn't got the insight. If he has got the insight, he might take it. Listening to some of the other speakers here earlier, one thing I said, there is when I said that it is, I have a schizophrenia, some kind of an empathy he was showing, and he was openly discussing about schizophrenia with me. Before that, he said that he was refusing. Now he is discussing. He will ask, Dad, do you hear voices? What do you do? Then I started telling that I am taking kind of whatever the medicines he is taking, that's a medicine I am taking. And I said that it is helping. Kind of slowly trying to build some kind of confidence. I don't know whether I will be successful. I don't know whether it's going to backfire, but this is my experience so far.
Wow, that's so unique. I've
Yeah.
never heard that tip before.
It is different.
That's quite something. Okay.
Yeah.
I wish you all the best. I'm sure
Thank
everybody joins me in wishing you the best in that way, in that path.
Yeah.
But he's in America, so you're not sure.
He's supposed to be there only for 2 months. That's the reason I'm not yet packed my bags here. I'm still holding. And I have gotten quite a bit of good interaction with the able guidance of Dr. Shanta Kamath. I'm intentionally staying here, at least in a hold here, so that he will come back and continue the treatment. If I also go to US, then in case, what's the incentive for him to come back? And I cannot force him to come back also at that point of time.
And have you tried the ECTs that Rupa was suggesting?
No, we have not tried. We have not come to that level yet because he hasn't got the insight. He refused to take medicine. He had quite a lot of episodes when he was in US. A couple of times he was hospitalized. So then when it came to the situation that we couldn't manage at all, that's the reason we came over here at that point of time. And luckily, at least in the last 1 year, he's taking medicine. And I can see a tremendous improvement in terms of his mood and his daily habits. He started going to work every day morning. He will get up, he will take care of by himself, he will take food with him. So at least he's able to do some of the work which he was not able to do when he was alone in US.
Wow. Okay. That was a very creative solution. I wish you the very best in this.
Thank you. I hope it works, and I'm sure I can come back and update to this group, continued update on this, what it works and not works.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
Gautam? You're on mute.
Is this better?
Yes, I can hear you now.
So I must say that all the speakers who have speaking before me, they've all touched a chord in the way I see, their struggles with taking care of somebody they really, really love. I lost my brother about 4 years back. He was a patient of schizophrenia. He was under the guidance of a psychiatrist in Delhi by the name of Dr. Alok Sareen, and he had a very good bond with the doctor. His problem was not non-compliance. His problem was substance abuse, which comes in the way, and also because he was a working person, most of these medications tend to make you very, lethargic and pull down. So at work, he used to find it very difficult. So his only resistance, not refusal, was it slows me down at workplace. And to overcome that, he would resort to the most common form of abuse, which is those cough syrups, opioids. So that used to lead to a complication. His compliance with medication, but countered with substance abuse, would actually not help matters. And that used to result in a lot of seizures. Those were very, very frightening instances. I mean, even if there have been 40 such instances, the 41st instance will make you feel just as scared as the first one.
Yeah.
And the other thing which he didn't really endorse was going for counseling sessions, because there has to be somebody who keeps reinforcing the advantage of medication and sorting out your life. It can't be left to family members, because family members, they know they want to say all this because they have a motive. Outside doesn't have a motive. So getting people with mental ailments to listen to a counselor is one of the steps which can help this habit formation. So that's really what I wanted to say. And I don't know whether it's true of everybody, but some of these medicines which are prescribed are not cheap. So people in the lower strata of the society, they can't even afford it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And the constant changing of meds, every visit to the psychiatrist, it's an expensive affair.
Yeah. I mean, even if the psychiatrist is not going to charge you for the consultation, but, the medicines, they cost quite a bit. It's different that my brother used to get that reimbursed from his company. So he had a very good employer, which was very, very, let's say, empathetic to his issues. So it didn't trouble him as much as I heard other people struggling. So that's my limited piece.
Thank you. I think what you're touching upon is something that many of us can relate to. It's very difficult as a carer to watch events unfold. You can only do so much at the end of the day. And that is the reality of it. Whilst we want to stay on the positive, we want to try and focus on what are the ideas, how do we brainstorm it, we need to accept that our lives, watching events unfold in our loved ones, is very challenging for sure.
Yeah. And the question of admission, he has been admitted to Wim Hands in Delhi on 3 separate occasions, except for the first time when he walked in and got admitted voluntarily. The second 2 times was not so voluntary. It was, kind of forced.
Yeah.
So we avoided the trouble of getting the court to intervene and all that, because that's a very complicated process.
Yeah. But that's also a point that I think to what Nasir was saying in the beginning, that one admission is not a miracle, by any means. It is a step in that direction. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing.
Thanks.
Roseman and then Venkatesh and then Nirmala ma'am, if that's okay.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Roseman, and I'm 60 years old, and I'm diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Okay. And different psychiatrist diagnosed me differently. One said it's bipolar, the other said it's anxiety, panic attacks. Okay, and now my therapist says it's a borderline personality disorder, and only 20% medicine will work, and other remaining only therapy works. And she gives me sometimes EMDR therapy. Okay, and some test she gave me to do and all. So what are the right treatments, and why? I mean, it's so confusing when so many good doctors are diagnosed differently, taking based on expensive tests, and then also the diagnosis is different. The therapist feels otherwise. So as a patient, then what should I do? And what treatment will work in my case, like EMDR or... Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Roseman. I think maybe our resource person is better placed to answer that question. But I think you raised a point that many of us can relate to, with misdiagnosis and confusing diagnosis from different resource people. When there's misdiagnosis, there's it sets you back by years, and the symptoms change. Your lives are affected in very different ways. And then, suddenly you've got a different diagnosis, and then different set of medication, different set of consequences and symptoms. So I can understand what you're saying. There's a lot of frustration with that.
But I feel like a pig, like doctors experimenting on me. Like I feel that, not a person, but a guinea pig. And it's affecting my body having side effects, then changing the medicine again and again, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think some of the things that Saraswati said, and then, I know Nirmala ma'am would also attest to this in terms of wrong diagnosis and the impact of that on the PMI directly and the impact of that on the others indirectly is quite intense. But I'll leave it to the resource person to answer a question in regards to what kind of medication you should take, because I'm not best suited to answer that. But thank you again for sharing. That was very brave of you to share. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry you're going through such a difficult time.
Yes. Spend a fortune on it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's not easy,
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
So resource person is not in.
Yeah, they're going to talk in some time. We're just getting some voices, and then they'll do a talk, a short talk.
Okay, later on. Okay.
In about 5 minutes. Yeah, 5-7 minutes.
Thank you.
Venkatesh?
Venkatesh here. My daughter is medically compliant. But the problem is that, for the past 1 year, the treating psychiatrist has reduced her dosage because she feels that she is emotionally stable now. But for the past few days, what has happened is suddenly there is some anger issues going on, and she has a tendency of blaming people who are highly successful than her, and she holds a grudge that she has worked for many people and she has not been compensated for her skills. She is hugely talented. She is one of the finest writers of the English language. Not a tendency of blaming people who are highly successful than her, and she holds a grudge that she has worked for many people and she has not been compensated for her skills. She is hugely talented. She is one of the finest writers of the English language. Not a graduate, but she is a published author. We have published her book on poetry with abstract paintings and a short story. She is in a whole different world, like she wants to sell her abstract paintings for so many crores. She will say, I'll talk to Elon Musk and I admire Putin and whatnot, irrational exuberance. Our problem is that she is good at content writing also. We want to nudge her towards content writing, but she is not ready. She is not willing. And secondly, this reduced dosage, I am fearing that it should not happen, that it leads to what we call a manic depressive phase. She is bipolar with schizoaffective disorder. Now, psychiatrist, for counseling, she is not ready to go. She is so intelligent, she will manipulate the counselor also. So the problem is that, and spending, she likes to spend a lot, retail therapy, she feels happy doing retail therapy. So the problem is, as family carers, we are slowly aging. I am 68, wife is 64. So if this spending pattern continues like this, what do we do? That is the problem.
Yeah, I think because our session today is focusing particularly on compliance, perhaps we can put that down as an idea.
I'm happy that she's medically compliant. She has realized. She has realized after so many number of ECTs and then extended stay in the hospital. She has, of course, there was a time when she blamed us that as if we had done some crime by giving her ECT. Because there is temporary loss of memory for some time, but that is just a question of a few days. Then again, your memory gets recovered. That is not a big issue. But another issue of mine is that she is, these people have their own world. They create a own world which is far away from reality, and you cannot question that world. If you question that world, you will become enemy number one. She said that she loves some Maharashtrian boy and she wants to marry him. She lost his phone number, whatnot. Those stories continue, like very creative, absolutely creative. We don't know if the persona is real or fictional.
I mean, the resource person is better placed to comment on this, but in my experience with my brother, that might be linked to the lower dosage. It might again, I'm not best placed to answer that, but from what you're saying, I saw some similar things with my brother when the dosage went down. I think there's an optimal level which PMIs need. But the resource person is better placed to answer that question. So we'll come back to that when they are.
I appreciate your feedback. I will discuss this with the treating psychiatrist.
Yeah, sure. I mean, please wait for the resource person to comment. I'm not, a psychiatrist by any means.
Sure, no, it's okay. I appreciate your feedback, madam. Thank you very much.
No problem. Nirmala, ma'am.
Going on the cost of medication, I just wanted to share this information that, as far as I know, psychiatric medication is supposed to be one of the cheapest in the market for any treatment. That's number one. Secondly, it's a myth that government pharmacies, Jan Aushadhi pharmacies are there, and government quality of drugs, spurious drugs are sold by government. This is a myth. If at all somebody like me at the age of 82 sitting in front of you and talking, I have been on government medication from they have this what is called essential drug thing and all that. It's absolutely fine. I don't know why people don't want to go to government doctors, don't want to go to government meds, unless you go and see it. These are biases. And finally, Jan Aushadhi is not, I believe, taken off so well as it is, should have been taken. However, one of the advocacy agenda points that FACEMI is now campaigning for is online access to Jan Aushadhi medicines, which means probably, if I am correct, 18% GST may not be there. And this online access to government medication, to begin with, will probably start with the government centers. I don't know, unless there is a PPP collaboration with private pharmaceuticals. But in the meantime, I would advocate, please try the supply of medicines. For example, in Delhi, you have the RML hospital, the Safdarjung AIMS, they have the pharmacies where if you have, of course, it's all free for those who are in defense or civil service, government retired servants. The others also, it is relatively much cheaper, I'm told, and I'm almost sure of it. This is all I have my submission. Please remove this bias that there are government sells spurious drugs. I don't think it's correct.
Can I just come back to that, Nirmala, on prescriptions? At least over here, you can get, like NHS will give us repeat prescriptions. You don't need to go every time. They will deliver to the door around the time that you're finishing your medication. Is that something that is
This is
available?
exactly what we are trying to do. In fact, few days back, I was in a session with the Health Minister of Karnataka, and he asked me to explain this better because he couldn't understand the 5-point agenda. He is not an activist, as you know. So he is a politician. He wants to know so this is what I told him. And this coming to the doorstep, Aparna, can also, in a way, make the PMI, our loved ones, internalize the fact that there is a medicine coming. All of us can order, like what Saraswati is saying now. Tata 1mg or whichever, Jan Aushadhi, this thing. It comes, and the prescription should be not, I don't know, that the resource person Shanta has to clarify on how many months the duration. Suppose the prescription is 1 year old, is it acceptable? Usually 3 to 6 months is what the governments, like if I have to collect my medicine from my polyclinic, my prescription for diabetes or BP cannot be more than 3 months old. I have to get the prescription renewed. This can also be done online, provided we have this assisted home care. I don't know how to explain the whole thing. It simplifies life for families at the system level. Support, unfortunately, is what is making the family members go crazy. That is no wonder everybody is talking about burden of care. I'm sorry, we have to fight for the systems to become all right. Sorry, I took up your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Before we go on to Vimla or Venkatesh,
Aparna, I think we are sorry to interrupt you, but I think we are falling short of time. So, yeah. I think we'll need to now call upon. Thank you so much, Aparna, for moderating. I'm sorry, Vimla and Venkatesh ji. We could probably see after our resource person, if there is availability of time, we could take it forward with you all. Okay. I now call upon Dr. Shanta to share her experiences and inputs for all of us. Nirmala ma'am, you want to say something more?
Can you all hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, Dr. Shanta.
First of all, I must thank Mrs. Nirmala Srinivasan and Saraswati for asking me to share the views. But one thing, for this past 1 hour, I have been listening to all of y'all. I think all of y'all have a very, very rich experience. So whatever I wanted to say, I've put it aside and I just say whatever, pick up points from what y'all have been talking. The first thing regarding medication compliance is that patients do not have insight. Insight is they do not know what they are suffering from. And they keep saying, I'm normal, there's nothing wrong with me, there is no need for me to take medication. And this percentage of patients, around 30%, become extremely difficult because medication is the cornerstone of all rehab programs or for the person to get well. And if you look at all the research papers that have been written on this subject, the most important factor is, I think, therapeutic alliance. The alliance between the doctor and the patient. I think this becomes very, very important. In fact, they say that the prescriber has a very, very much greater role than even a medication to see that the patient takes it. This therapeutic alliance, I think one of the great examples for great therapeutic alliance is late Dr. Sharda Menon, who's the founder of SCARF. She had an amazing alliance with patients. And she was I think I saw Gomati's name here, and Gomati will vouch for it because she has also been, her sister has been treated by Dr. Menon. So importance of the doctor's relationship, or what do you call it, a connection with the patient, that settles a lot of this compliance issue. Because once they know that you mean well, they definitely take the medication whether they like it or not. Because of this non-compliance, very often the families in India especially, many of them give the medication to the patient. As Saraswati was saying, she makes it as a routine to see that the patient takes medication. But very often I tell families that they have to give the medication so that you're assured of compliance. And when you look at Indian families, what you see is there's generally a very, very negative attitude towards medication. Many of them will say, oh, he's quite all right. If he continues the medication, the kidneys will get bad and he will have kidney problems. I think there's a very, very negative attitude towards medication. And very often what happens is in other diseases, if you stop the medication, nothing happens. But immediately you can see the side effects like BP going up or your cholesterol levels going up. But in psychiatric medication, if you stop the medication, nothing happens. The relapse comes after 2 to 3 months, or just now, Mr. Venkatesh was talking that the lowering the dose, what I can see is a relapse coming up in his daughter. So he'll have to probably talk to the psychiatrist and get the dosage increased, because if she goes off, it will be very difficult. She'll probably need an admission. So it's very important that the medication is supervised by families so that they know that the patient is taking. Long-acting injections, extremely useful. But after a few months, the patient says, I don't want to take the injection. It is painful. It's an oily base. So long-acting injection is very, very useful in very many of these patients. I've even heard of what is known as financial constraints in families. I think that's a very, very important issue in Indian families, where many of them are not able to afford the medication. Even if the psychiatrist does not charge, the families are not able to afford medication. Another reason why patients give up medication is side effects. So the dose has to be titrated very carefully, and the therapeutic alliance with the doctor helps, because I even tell the patient, if you are uncomfortable with the medication, please come back. I will change or lower the dose, and this it will help you a lot to stay all right. Another importance is to have what is known as motivational intervention, where the social workers who know the patient are able to see reason. And here again, it's a strong therapeutic alliance where social workers tell them that what is your goal? Your goal is to get a job. If you have to get a job, you have to take medicines regularly so that you don't get angry, you sleep regularly. So helping patients to work towards their goal becomes very, very important. There is a whole range of non-pharmacological interventions. Most important is psychoeducation. I think this plays a very, very important role, because in our residential center in Bhavishya Bhavan, we have what is known as a medication group, where patients who are compliant talk to patients who have been admitted who are non-compliant. And when a patient tells the other patient, I have been admitted because I didn't take medication, and how medications helped me, but I stopped it. Compared to a doctor or a social worker, when patients talk to other patients, it helps a lot. It really helps a lot, because they take it from somebody who's equal to them. So having medication groups in residential centers helps a lot, for where patient, in fact, the patient also came in the outpatient and told me, so and so told me not to stop my medication, and I'm not stopping because she told me that relapse will mean more admission, or relapse will make me sleep, not get sleep. So what you see is, in many patients, what is known as a relapse signature. A relapse signature is when a patient relapses, they relapse in the same way. So it's very important that the social worker finds out from the family, how does the patient relapse? It can be lack of sleep, it can be anger, it can be becoming delusional. So the family should understand that when a patient is showing any of these symptoms, he is probably heading for a relapse, and how they should see that the patient increases the dose so that he does not go into a full-blown relapse. I think supervised intake of medication is very important. Long-acting injections are very important. Psychoeducation, reminders. There is so much of, we are so well connected these days. I have a family where the patient stays in India and the daughter stays in the US. Every evening she calls her mother to see that she takes her pill, makes a video call and sees that she takes medication in front of her so that she doesn't go into relapse. So there are a few families, well-meaning sisters, daughters, who help in seeing that the compliance goes on. Now, as far as other forms of non-pharmacological interventions, somebody talked of yoga and pranayama. I think all of us, yoga and pranayama becomes very, very important in these patients. One, because of side effects and obesity. Two, helping them to get a routine. If they are able to do online yoga, or if they are able to do yoga, it helps them, because pranayama brings down anxiety in patients. In fact, the mind and breath are very closely connected. So whenever you have anxiety, the breathing becomes more. So when you do pranayama, it helps. I feel it gives them a routine that between 4 and 5 or between 8 and 9 in the morning, they have to do online yoga or go for a yoga class. It gives a lot of routine. It helps them to build friendships. It also cuts down anxiety. So yoga and pranayama help a lot in many of the patients. Now, there are other therapies like pranic healing, magnetotherapy, Ayurveda, homeopathy. All these the patients like to take, but I don't think you can stop the medication, psychiatric medication as such. In fact, pranic healing, I had a particular patient, I had to talk to the healer saying, you do your healing, but please encourage her to take medication. And this helped because she didn't know I had spoken to her. When the pranic healer spoke to the patient and said, please take your medication regularly, you will heal better when I do the healing, that helped a lot and it worked wonders. So every time they go for the other therapies, they can go, provided the therapist is educated that they have to take their medication along with this. And coming from a non-professional like a pranic healer or a magnetotherapist, it works better. So the homework has to be done by families, that they speak to the particular therapist in person before they meet the patient. Now, what are the challenges in the Indian setup? I think it's women who are a big challenge, because when I did a large project for National Commission for Women a few years ago, what we saw was that many of the men were married, but they remained in the marriage with the normal woman, his wife, taking on the case managership and taking on even the wage earning role. Though her husband was not working, she continued to work for the children and for the family. She continued to supervise the medication, bring him for reviews. So this marriage in the case of a man helped. But in the case of the woman, it's very, very sad to see that there are so many divorces and separations taking place. What happens is, during the prodrome, when the woman is going through probably lack of sleep or confusion, the family thinks it's because she's not married, and they immediately get her married. And when they go to a new environment, she has a florid psychotic breakdown, and many of them have to come back to the parental home. And the aged parents are burdened not only with the woman and the child, and very often there's no alimony at all, because the courts may provide an alimony for the women, but what happens is there's no person to implement it. The court may give an alimony, but there's nobody to implement. So very often after 1 month, there's no alimony being given. That's how the lawyers told me, better to give a lump sum amount from the court itself, so that every month giving alimony comes down. Another challenge, that is why I volunteer time to this free home in Chennai, which are run by sisters, where I have about 35 women staying there. All of them are separated from their separated or divorced from their husbands, and the parents are no longer there. Very often the responsibility lies with the parents. The parents take care of their children, but when it comes to siblings, very difficult, because siblings, especially if it's a brother, he says my wife is not willing to take care, the patient talks too much. So the siblings are able to give their money but not their time for the patient. So women is a huge problem, whereas families, you all must work to see what can be done for women with mental illness who are separated or divorced. Another big challenge in the Indian setup is where there are more than 2 members who are sick in the same family. I have many families like that, where the mother and daughter are sick, or the brother and sister are sick, and the families are extremely burdened what to do. When one is all right, the other one is in a relapse. And buying medication for so many family members again becomes a challenge. So the family members where there are so many who are sick at the same time, it becomes very, very difficult. Another big problem is very often first generation antipsychotics are prescribed in some of the hospitals. And what happens is, because of the side effects, many of them stop the medication. So it's very important that we see that medication prescribed should suit the patient, and the doctor should see that if there are any side effects, how we can help these patients to change the medication. Now, there is also a lot of shame and stigma referred in accessing hospitals to get medication. This we have seen that their families feel ashamed to go, and they say, no, patient is all right. And very often they are in denial. They don't want to accept that the patient is sick, and they continue to go on as long as the parents are alive. And afterwards, it becomes a very, very big burden for the brothers and sisters. Now, when there is an only child, that again becomes a problem, because parents are all the time worried what happens after they are gone. Because if they are not very compliant with medication, how do we go about looking after the patient when we are no longer there? So these are a range of issues which are coming up with families and non-compliance. I think y'all have extremely rich experience, and y'all must see how y'all can help out with help out, especially with the government, because the National Commission, we had given a thing, one of the suggestions in the National Commission report, that there should be homes for women, because they need specialized homes so that they are taken care of and not burdened by the family. I think with these few words, if there are any questions, I'm willing to answer.
Thank you, Dr. Shanta. Anybody would like to ask any questions, they can raise their hands. And Roseman, you would like to ask a question?
Yes, actually, I'm recently diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Before
that was, I'm sorry, I didn't answer your question.
Yes.
See, we have to do psychological tests and need a detailed history before we make a diagnosis. So it's very important that whoever is treating you, you should have the longitudinal history. Plus, we need psychological tests to find out the diagnosis. It becomes very important that the diagnosis should be correct before treatment is started. So borderline personality disorders also have, micro psychotic episodes sometimes. So the medication is prescribed, but once you're on track again, you can stop the medication. I'm not able to, advise you, because you need a history plus psychological tests plus how you're functioning now. It takes some time for us to do it.
I've been to very good doctors, ma'am, and every time, every test diagnosis is different. Okay, in spite of giving history and everything. Okay, and what kind of therapies will work for me? Just now I'm taking therapy. She gives me EMDR sometimes. So is that okay in this type of disorder?
Yeah,
along with the
therapy
medicine.
helps, but therapy definitely helps. But the better thing is to get yourself evaluated properly so that you know what the diagnosis is.
And the psychiatrist
who have done it in the past,
she also told me that the tests are not 100% reliable.
Okay.
And okay.
Yeah.
And I'm on. I have to see my psychiatrist again, and I'm I'm taking mood stabilizers. Zapids I'm taking, and also Encorect 200.
Yeah.
And Ventab 1.5. Yeah.
That's
So
antidepressant, anti-anxiety, plus a mood stabilizer. Correct.
yes. So those are correct.
But
Medicine for the stuff.
if your husband says you're more stable with these, I think you can continue with it. Diagnosis doesn't very often is important. What is important is whether you're functioning all right, whether you're
Okay.
able to do your routine work, whether you're able to have, no mood swings. I think diagnosis, very often it's functioning which you should pay attention to. If you're functioning well, you should leave it at that. Continue with the medication and go for therapy.
And what kind of therapy is
It
suited
really
in my
depends
case?
what are your symptoms and other things.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Bimla, you
Hello,
raised your hand.
ma'am.
You'd
Can you
like to-
hear me?
Yeah, we can
you
hear
hear
you
me?
now. Yeah. You can
Ma'am,
continue.
my son was also diagnosed as having a borderline personality problem in AIMS, Delhi. Later in NIMHANS, they called it as negative symptoms of schizophrenia. He was on medication with amisulpride 600. It was lowered slowly, gradually to 500, 400, and later to 300. And he was quite functional at 100. Later, he reduced it to 50 and then landed up with problems. Now it has been reversed back to 100, but he's having a lot of unsteadiness while walking. Earlier, he had constipation and landed up with anal fissure, but those things, the constipation problem is now addressed. But he's having this unsteady gait. So I'm not able to understand what to do. He shuffles kind of. So he's taking 100 milligrams of
How old is he?
amisulpride.
How old is he?
He is now around 44 years of age.
Probably you'll have to see whether there are any side effects, and add, trihexyphenidyl along with 100 milligram of the
amisulpride.
Yeah, 100 milligram actually is a very small dose, but if you add trihexyphenidyl, that shuffling gait comes down.
Right, ma'am. And this metabolic syndrome, the diabetes, is it
Yes.
due to the amisulpride, or do we need to change the medication to
See,
aripiprazole?
diabetes and schizophrenia are very closely linked.
Right,
the
ma'am.
gene is similar, but what happens is they have very poor choice of food. And because some of them on olanzapine and all get very hungry, so they eat more. So diabetes and schizophrenia, and with emisulfuride also, some of the women especially put on weight. So there is a catch-22, whether to, the patient has to be all right, same time the metabolic syndrome should come down. So it means diet, exercise, walking, plus remaining stable. So it's very difficult to say whether emisulfurized has caused the diabetes or whether it is the relapse or poor eating habits causing the diabetes. But
And eating habits are all right because I am a doctor, but he is very sedentary. He doesn't exercise.
That's where the problem is.
He's very functional on the mobile. He can do many things. But I mean, as far as activity on the mobile is concerned, but his physical activity is restricted. Negative symptoms are marked.
Yes. Negative symptoms prevent him from exercising. But
Yes.
now there's so much of online yoga and other things, exercise class and all. From home itself, whether towards the evening they feel better, whether they can have the class towards the evening. But diabetes and schizophrenia is very closely linked. In fact, the gene is similar. So many patients with schizophrenia get diabetes. So we have to look out, plus the medication, plus poor food choice. All three contribute.
He's insisting that he wants to take olanzapine. One of the Delhi doctors had given Dr. Bora olanzapine and aripiprazole combination. He says that did
I sometimes listen to the patient because they are the ones who take the medication. If he wants aripiprazole and olanzapine, he probably may be fine with it. I have a patient from who comes to see me. He's very clearly depressed. But even if I put a 50 milligram dose of amisulfuride, I don't even put an antidepressant. He says, no, it doesn't suit me. So he takes olanzapine 5 milligram morning, afternoon, and night. And he tells me I'm fine. But I keep quiet because he knows what is happening. He says amisulfuride does not suit me. If I put sertraline, no, it does not suit me. I feel suicidal, he says, with sertraline, which is to prevent. So sometimes we have to listen to the patient because some of them know what is happening to their mind and body. So this patient continues with olanzapine and he says, I'm functional. So I leave it at that. I don't try to impose my views.
Right, ma'am. Because he says he was much better off with olanzapine and aripiprazole combination.
I think you should believe him. This instead of continuing this, you see what the dose is, and since you're a doctor, you'll be able to, monitor him. Probably the aripiprazole helps him to think more clearly, and during the daytime, it helps. Olanzapine probably gives him better sleep also. So try it. I'm sure he'll be better.
Okay. How do I taper off this amisulfuride and
No, it's a very small dose. I think you can just start. There is no need of tapering. It's a very, very small dose.
Right, ma'am. Right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We'll take a last question, Richa. Richa, if it is to the topic, I would request you. Otherwise,
Nini, I have a very simple question. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Actually, ma'am, I would like to know, is it a good idea to tell the patient their diagnosis? Because some patients were aggressive. They don't take it very lightly.
I don't know. I don't talk of diagnosis at all because they read up and all that. I only say the chemical change, and if you take medicine, your mind will be calm. I never give the diagnosis, never.
Perfect.
Because there's no point in they going up and reading and feeling more depressed. I'll say you'll get better if you take this small dose, and many of them don't question too much. It's only when they start reading on the net and all, many of them feel very depressed and feel their lives are, wasted because of this illness. So better to give them hope and work on the positive side.
Thanks, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Yes.
Dr. Shanta, before we wind up, any last few words for medical compliance to all of us, how we could go about?
I think each of y'all are coping in your own way. But what important thing is that Mr. Iyer has a very difficult daughter. What he must do is meet the psychiatrist before the daughter goes, and send her in after a few days and say that then he'll probably start the line of questioning in that area and find out she's in a relapse and increase the dosage before she goes into a full-blown relapse. I think all of y'all are doing excellent jobs in your own way trying to help out. I think Mr. Nasser is suffering a lot because his sister is very violent also, and the aged mother is so scared. I think he needs to see how he can, see that she's hospitalized and advise the mother that she'll get better. What works in a residential center is when you have groups where patients, you have what is known as peer counseling now. We have started it in SCARF, where the patient counsels the patient. Peer counseling. And they take it, peer counseling helps a lot rather than the professional, if the peer counselor is able to talk to them, it helps a lot. I've seen many of the patients doing well with the peer counseling. That helps a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy that one of the persons who are talked on ECTs also, though it's been, very much barred in very often people talk negatively about it. She was able to say ECT helped me to clear my thinking and rejoin my family. Husband's side,
Yeah, that was Rupak from our.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I forget the names because so many of you all spoke. But I think y'all don't need a professional. I think y'all can interact among yourselves and give ideas to each other. Y'all are doing a great job. But I think, as Nirmala Srinivasan said, the systems have to change for aged parents and caregivers.
Yes.
You'll have to work at systems.
Yes, I agree with you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'll call Dr. Sachin Ghanorkar to give the vote of thanks. Dr. Sachin?
Yeah, thank you, Saraswati. Thanks a lot. So good evening, everyone. We would want to take a moment to sincerely thank all of you for being here today. It was a very interesting topic and discussion on medication compliance, sharing and solving. Based on whatever has been discussed, we know that staying on medication is just not taking a pill. But as all the speakers were discussing, it is also creating trust, which is therapeutic alliance, understanding and overcoming personal barriers. So all of us have personal barriers. There are also societal barriers, which a lot of people spoke about women, about the kind of negative attitudes people have about medication. So whether if you are a doctor or a caregiver in this group, or as families managing health condition, I think all of us roles in this journey is very valuable. So we would like to specially thank Dr. Aparna Gonibeed, Dr. Shanta Kamath, Saraswati, Sindhuja, and all the people who actually have shared their journeys and the way they are trying to tackle medication compliance and make this session very meaningful. We truly appreciate the open conversations, experiences which were shared, and very interesting questions, which has made the session very enriching. So we would just like to thank and just want to sum up what Dr. Shanta said was, I think, looking at pharmacological approaches where you supervise, where you look at long-acting drugs, where you look at reminders, maybe video calls. And non-pharmacological would be, I think, motivational interviewing, where it means that you should not confront the person. You should actually put outcomes and say, if you want to get better, I think this is how it will help. And then she spoke about challenges about women as case managers and who are also earning members, and also members who have many people who are ill. And she also actually counseled a few people who had some questions. So we would request on the part of FACEMI that let us continue to work together to create a system that supports adherence through force, not through force, but through empathy, education, and collaboration. So I thank everybody here in this group to give their time. And I hope today's session empowers us in some way to take meaningful steps to enhance mental health outcomes. So thank you very much. Thank you, Saraswati, and thank you, Sindhuja.
Thank you, Dr. Sachin. I'll just now, we do have the FACEMI pledge. I'll just read it out. We, the members of Family Alliance, just give me a second, on mental illness, pledge to support one another and other families in similar situations and use language which conveys love and respect towards each other and especially towards PMI. We shall strive to protect and promote the rights of PMI as enshrined in the laws of the land. On this day, we take this pledge to work towards the vision and mission of FACEMI. Thank you, everyone, and have a great weekend. And thank you very much.